just want to say hello to everyone and welcome to this WQE psychology webinar. My name is Mr. Darji and I shall be outlining a little bit about psychology and having a look at some studies and some content with regards to psychology and the kind of things that we might be talking about on a psychology course at WQE. So the purpose of this session is to provide you with a brief overview of psychology and to look at some content in psychology and to offer you a question and answer opportunity towards the end of the session. So please save any questions that you might have that you think I might be able to kind of answer for towards the end of the session. So as I said, I'm Mr. Darji. I'm one of the teachers at WQE, also a chartered psychologist, and also have other roles and responsibilities at the college. And I'm just going to kind of talk you through a little bit about the kind of courses that we offer. And you can find this information on the college website. I've put the link there. If there's any slides here that you want to take photos of on your phones and so, please feel free to do so. But there are three main kind of courses that we offer at WQE. We've got the A-level course, we've got the BTEC Level 3 Extended Certificate, and we have got the Psychology GCSE. So you can delve into the detail of that a lot more by going onto the link that I have provided on this slide for more information. But essentially, the A-level course is a 2-year course covering a whole range of topics and content. There is no coursework, so it's all exam-based content at the end of the 2 years. The BTEC, on the other hand, is again a level 3 course, but will contain bits of kind of coursework alongside various tests and so forth. So please do find the time to read up on these on the link above, and to make sure that whichever course that you do envisage kind of having a look at and wanting to study, that you've done some research and had a look at those. So those are the courses with regards to psychology that we offer at the college. So before we delve into a bit more psychology, I just wanted to give a little bit of a brief as to what psychology is as a subject and as a discipline. And there's a lots of resources and sites and information online that you can kind of research. But in a nutshell, psychology refers to the scientific study of mind and behavior. It's a relatively new science. Most advances happening over the past 150 years or so. And the point of psychology is it's aiming to explain, understand, and predict and change the behavior and mental processes of others. It's driven by research and theory. And one of the pieces of research we will look at shortly, you'll be able to kind of see the kind of impact that psychology can make in trying to understand human behavior. And it covers many areas of human behavior. So we look at things like obedience, memory function, we look at depression, stress, conformity, we look at biological processes as well as others. So we look at the neurochemicals that might affect kind of behavior. So we look at things like serotonin, dopamine, cortisol, what effects these things might have on human behavior as well. We answer or we attempt to discuss the long-standing debates in psychology, such as the nature or nurture debate. So, for example, are we a product of our biology, or are we a product of our environment, or is it a mixture of both? So we will look at certain interesting debates in psychology referring to that. And we then have a look at its real-life application. In what way can psychology that we learn, that we research, that we theorize about, in what way can that help us in real life to understand changes in society, to look at treatments, to understand mental health, to look at education and learning. So all of these things might have a real life impact in how society functions. And that's one of the fascinating things about psychology, is seeing how it can affect and change and implement change in society and with people. So I'm hoping that gives you a little bit of the kind of things that psychology might entail. But moving on to that point that I've talked about, it is largely driven by research and theory. It's the research that drives our understanding in psychology. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about one of the most famous pieces of research in psychology. And this looked at social influence, the topic of social influence in psychology. And Zimbardo in 1971 carried out, as I said, one of the most famous psychology experiments called the Stanford prison experiment. And Zimbardo and his colleagues were interested in looking at social roles and finding out whether the brutality reported amongst guards in American prisons in the 70s was due to the sadistic personalities of the guards, or had more to do with the prison environment. Okay, so he was trying to understand, well, is it personality or is it environment that creates the brutal behavior that the guards were demonstrating in American prisons during the 70s? And so he carried out an experiment that allowed him to look at social roles. And the way that he did that was to recruit 24 male college students from the US and Canada, and they were paid $15 at the time per day to participate. And he chose participants that were mentally and physically healthy. They were also very similar in age, education background, and so forth. Okay, and he randomly assigned these participants to either a prisoner or guard. Okay, he recruited these participants, placed them in a prison simulated environment. Okay, it was a simulation, and half the participants that were recruited, these university students, half of them were allocated the role of the guard, and half of the participants were allocated the role of prisoners. And Zimbardo wanted to identify, well, what would happen if we let this study just run with, participants being prisoners and some participants being guards. And the guards would make up their own set of prison rules. There would be no training, and the idea is the study was supposed to run for about 2 weeks, but on the 6th day it was actually stopped. And I'm going to say a little bit about why they stopped the study. So participants on arrival of they were blindfolded upon arrival. They were strip searched and inspected for lice. They were given ID numbers and hair caps. They were forced to wear ankle chains. So the whole idea of this was to de-individualize the participants, to strip them of any individuality, and so that they just became a prisoner number as opposed to a person and an individual. And this kind of created somewhat of a power struggle or power conflict between prisoners and kind of guards. This again tried to kind of increase the divide between the two parties. So the guards came up with quite creative ways to punish prisoners. And just remember, it's all a simulation and nobody's really legally a guard or a prisoner. They're just taking on social roles of a guard or of a prisoner. And Zimbardo identified lots of different styles or various styles amongst the guards that demonstrated or illustrated the kind of way that they kind of behaved. It got to the point when the guards started to kind of treat the prisoners quite brutally in terms of the demands that they were asking of the prisoners. So much so that the study had to be stopped on the 6th day. So it was terminated on the 6th day due to the emotional breakdown of the prisoners and of the excessive aggression that the guards were demonstrating. in that study. And according to Zimbardo and his colleagues, the Stanford prison experiment revealed how people would readily conform to the social roles that they are expected to play, especially if the roles are strongly stereotyped. So the study demonstrated in a controlled environment that individuals adopt social roles because they're given the role of a guard. These individuals adopted the behaviours and the mannerisms of a guard and the stereotypical view of how a guard might behave in an American prison. And so one of the big kind of findings of this study is that it just demonstrates that people do conform to social roles, and it's the situation that is more powerful than the personality of the individual. The situation that an individual finds themselves in can kind of create individuals to behave in ways that they wouldn't normally behave in society. So a couple of things I wanted you to have a think about, and hopefully we'll be able to facilitate this on the chat function. And I'll be interested to see what kind of answers you kind of come up with. I wanted to ask the following two questions really, and I wanted you to just reflect just for a couple of minutes on what does this study tell us about human behaviour. Okay, this setup of people being allocated the role of a guard or the role of prisoners, and the ultimate finding that the guards ended up kind of behaving in the way that they kind of behaved. What does this tell us about human behaviour? And then the second question is, do you think it was right for Zimbardo to carry out an experiment like this? What kind of problems would you envisage kind of this study kind of having? So those are the two main questions. I'll just give you a couple of minutes to kind of reflect on that, and it'll be interesting to kind of see what kind of comments come up. So please feel free to add some comments. Okay, Cecilia, is that function active? Okay. So just some brief thoughts. What do we think this study will tell us about human behaviour, and was it right to carry out the study in this particular way? Excellent, starting to get some answers in. Thank you very much. That's really good. That's a good answer. Okay, I will read some of these things out in a minute. Don't worry, don't overthink it too much. Just whatever comes to your mind. Okay, what does this tell us about human behaviour? And do you think it was right? Thank you very much for your comments. Keep going, keep them coming. That's brilliant. Really good stuff. I'm seeing some really good stuff here. Excellent. That's it. Keep it going, guys. Thanks for your contributions. This is excellent. Okay, a couple more seconds, and then I'm looking through these as you're typing them. So and I'll mention a few in a minute. This is excellent, really good. This is working really well. Thanks, guys. Keep posting. Right, fantastic. I'm just going to start to read some of it. Excellent, guys. Keep them coming. That's great. It's really good. It's really encouraging. Okay, so we've got some people saying, people conform to social pressures, to real or imagined social pressures. Humans adapt their behaviour depending on their environments and how they perceive their position of authority in that situation. It's really good. Both those comments are really good. Similar to the Hawthorne effect, how people's behaviour change accordingly. That's excellent. Okay, so you've obviously done a little bit of extra reading in psychology. That's really good. The ethics are questionable. Did they know what they were getting into? Yeah, absolutely. You know, did the participants really fully know what they signed up for? So they might have agreed to participate in something about prison life, but did they really know what they were getting into? So that's an issue about, you know, informed consent. Did they know enough about the study so that they could actually consent? People are given position of power, they may start to abuse their power. Yeah, absolutely. Could be seen as unethical because of the trauma on prisoners. Absolutely. So in psychology, we explore things like looking at the ethics of psychological harm and to what extent do pieces of research encroach on that. And that's something that the researchers need to kind of consider. Symbolic experience is the reason he got involved, meaning he was mentally involved in conformity. Yes, if you do some further reading on this, and I'll put some links at the end of this slide that you can kind of take a photo of. It was also kind of identified that Zimbardo got quite heavily involved with this experiment to the point that he was also the superintendent of this mock prison, which meant he was also involved as a participant himself. And so there is some kind of dilemma there in terms of bias and researcher bias in this study. But that's really good points. Yeah, he was the warden of the prison. Well spotted. Okay. It suggests that humans are controlled and driven by power, social pressure structured in certain ways based on stereotypes. Excellent. Very good. Yeah, today, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I mean, the Stanford prison experiment today probably wouldn't be allowed in terms of, you know, the mental health, mental well-being of participants in that type of situation. So that's really good. Belmont, the problem is, yep, okay, very good. Okay, fantastic. So there's a couple of questions. Another question that's kind of come up here as well is that for the A level, it's AQA psychology. Okay, so just to kind of put that out there, I can probably talk a little bit later about that, but just because I've seen the question pop up, I'll hopefully I've answered that. So for A level psychology, it's the AQA exam board. Okay. Very good, excellent. Okay, see some really good stuff. Thank you so much. I've got so many responses. That's what's worked really well. Thank you so much. Okay, so moving on. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so there's the slide with some further reading about that. So I'm hoping that's given you a little bit of a sense of the kind of pieces of research that we'll be talking about in psychology. They vary, you know, that's you know, a particular well-known study in there, and there's lots of material kind of, there might be, you know, there's research studies in lots of different areas of psychology for you to kind of explore. So you know, it's just a matter of just, you know, having a look through and you know, by all means using, you know, use the internet and use the resources. If you're thinking about A-level psychology at WQE, then look at the AQA website, and they'll give you a breakdown of what's in the kind of syllabus in there. So that should just give you a starting point. At least you've got an idea of the kind of things we'd be talking about. We'd be talking about theories. We'd be talking about pieces of research. We'd be wanting to criticize pieces of research, just like we've done there, just exactly like we've done, you know, questioning the ethics, questioning the kind of findings, questioning the validity of the people of research. So these are things that we'd be wanting to apply. These are skills we're going to be wanting to develop during the duration of kind of the course. Right, I think we're on to the question and answer segment of this, and it's really just it's a free-for-all, really, just for you to kind of have a go posting a question. So we know that the chat Q&A function is working really well, and people have been posting. So I'll give you a few minutes just to reflect and just ask away any questions relating to psychology, and hopefully I'll be able to kind of answer them. If that may not be possible, I will kind of send that information to our admissions team, and then they can relay that back to you. Is that okay, Cecilia, if there is anything? So, but post some questions up, and I will start to tackle those questions. Okay. So anything about the course, anything about studying at WGE with regards to psychology, and then I'll have a look. Okay. Right. Okay. Is there a textbook that you would recommend for A-level? Okay. Yes, there is. Okay. So if you go into Amazon, I'm trying to see if I've not got a copy of it at the moment. But there is a digital textbook, and there is a textbook as well, and it's got a picture of a girl with green hair on it. And it's A-level psychology for AQA, and that's the kind of textbook that you probably might want to look at. I wouldn't recommend that you need to buy anything right now. Okay, at the moment, there's enough information online for you to kind of research, but I would wait before wait to start your course to kind of get a little bit more information about that. So pass rate for psychology. I think admissions will have that information. Okay, it is high. The results are good. They are always really positive. So I think admissions will have more information on that. Do you need to pay for any extra resource material to the course? So when you start, especially for A-level psychology, you will be given a booklet that's got all the studies and the theories that you need to kind of learn. And so at this point, I wouldn't recommend needing to get an AQA psychology textbook. You will be given access to the online digital version of the textbook. It's one of the reasons why I'm saying you don't really need to buy a textbook right now. Once the course starts, you will be given access to the digital textbook. And you can read that online, and there are questions, there are answers, there are model answers in there as well. But you'll be given free access by the college to the online digital version of the textbook. Okay. Right, start date for college. I think that's an admissions thing. I don't have. I think once enrollment's over, there will be some official guidelines that are emailed out. Cecilia, I would think there'll be communication to students about start dates. For A-level psychology exams, there are 3 exam papers: paper 1, paper 2, paper 3. Okay, and each exam's 2 hours kind of long, and it's all kind of written short answer questions, multiple choice questions, and then longer essay questions that require application skill, description skill, and evaluative skills to be demonstrated in there. So hopefully that answers your question. How much of the psychology course is related to biology? Okay, so that's a really good question. There is a lot more biology in understanding psychology, and that's because of the relationship between psychology and it being a science, in the sense of understanding what's going on in the body. So in order to understand human behavior in the mind, we have to acknowledge what's going on in the body. We have to acknowledge the fact that there are chemicals in the body that are released that influences our behavior. We need to be acknowledging areas of the brain, because we know that there are certain areas of the brain that relate to specific types of behavior. So we know that the left hemisphere looks at things like language skills. The right hemisphere of the brain is responsible for more creative aspects, spatial awareness. So we know that the different areas of the brain and the different hemispheres of the and areas are responsible for different functions which drive behavior. So yes, there will be some good overlap with elements of biology in there. Of course, we also kind of look at things like MRI scans and the use of that type of equipment and technology in scanning the brain and trying to understand how areas of the brain are responsible for certain types of behavior. What courses go well with psychology? Well, Some students pick psychology because it's just an interesting subject as a one-off alongside other subjects. I mean, we've got students who've picked art-based courses and psychology alongside that. But some people want to kind of get a more holistic view and understanding of human behaviour. So we do get some students who pick, you know, a combination of social science-based subjects, so maybe psychology, sociology, and kind of something else, and philosophy maybe. Or you might think, oh, well, I quite like the biology aspects of psychology, and I might pick psychology alongside biology. So it all really depends upon how much you are looking to delve into specific careers. I mean, sometimes that might be the way to think about it, is kind of, does any of this kind of stuff link in with potential kind of career aspirations? But we've had students who just simply pick psychology because it's as a standalone with all the other subjects. It's just an interesting subject, understanding about human beings and what drives them and what motivates them. So hopefully that answers your question there. Do we cover much about Wundt's introspection theories? We do. It is in there. It's not a lot, but it is in there. We do talk about Wundt's introspection theory, so it is in there. Are there crossovers from sociology and psychology? Some of the skills crossover. Things about research methods. So the research, understanding about how to carry out research will be kind of used. There might be some elements of discursive skills, essay writing skills, really transferable skills that you can cross over, which you can bring over from both subject areas. So sometimes that can help, and that can kind of complement each other. The class sizes, roughly about 24, 23, 24. So that's kind of roughly the kind of number that's in my head. What websites do you recommend for a head start at home? Okay, so there's a couple of sites out there. There's Simply Psychology, so you can have a look at Simply Psychology. That's a good starting point. Anything that kind of looks at A-level psychology, especially if it links in with the AQA syllabus, is pretty good. But Simply Psychology is a pretty good starting point to have a look at. What do you recommend reading about before studying psychology? Again, just have a look at a couple of studies, a bit like what we've just done just now. We've looked at Zimbardo. There's a couple of others out there. Milgram, okay. Stanley Milgram's obedience experiments. Have a look at that. Okay, you can find out. There are videos on YouTube as well for the Zimbardo study. Even there's videos, but have a look at Stanley Milgram's obedience studies, and again, you can find videos on YouTube and stuff on Simply Psychology or other websites. You can look at Solomon Asch and conformity experiments. You can kind of look at Loftus and Palmer. Loftus and Palmer kind of looked at eyewitness testimony and how accurate eyewitness testimony is. So just have a little bit of a view of a breadth of different psychologists in different areas. You can look at Skinner, and Skinner kind of looked at reinforcement. You can look at Pavlov and Pavlov's dogs experiment, which kind of looked at classical conditioning. So those are areas that you could kind of have a look at if you wanted to get a bit of a head start and getting a bit of more familiar with certain studies and certain concepts in psychology. How many sessions are there each week? There are 4 lessons each week. And there's nothing really you need specific to know for September. Just read around, maybe kind of looking at some of the things that we've just been talking about. And I said there is some overlap with sociology. I won't know the syllabus of sociology, but I do know there are skills that overlap, the transferable skills, things like research methods, things like writing essays, and things like that. There are definitely transferable skills there. There is, yes, psychology has a lot of content. That is true. Okay, A-level psychology has a lot of studies, has a lot of theories. There's a lot of reading. There's a lot of distilling of information down and making revision notes. And there are essays to be written. Okay, so absolutely, that is true. There is a lot of content in psychology, and you have to be prepared that you're going to be working with studies, research articles, theories, and needing to write that and put that down into timed essays. Okay. For courses that to become a psychologist, well, as a psychologist myself, you don't really need anything particularly. You know, psychology A-level does give you a good grounding going into doing an undergraduate in psychology. So there aren't really any requisites to do an undergraduate psychology degree. But you know, picking subjects that will help deal with a psychology undergraduate degree will be useful. So you know, do have a look at specific universities, see what they are, but you know, picking psychology as an A-level will certainly kind of help into studying it further in the future. Will the textbooks be available for free on Caboodle when college starts? Okay, so the text we will give you the free access to the textbooks from our college access, so you will have access to the textbooks with an online version. So again, in terms of reading, just look around the web, just type it in, just go into Google, and you'll learn about some of those studies that we've just talked about. In terms of subtopics, again, have a look at the AQA syllabus. I think in my very first slide, I talked about some of the subtopics in psychology that we learn about. Obedience, attachments, biopsychology, memory. Those are the kind of subtopics that we kind of look at. Yes, there are many essay style questions that we'll need to learn. Again, have a look on YouTube for psychology related stuff. There are lots of films and lots of TV shows, and it all depends on what your preferences are. But sometimes there's some good psychology in TV programs. It's just really having a look and seeing what's there. Anything that's trying to understand human behavior or trying to understand what makes people tick and what makes them function is going to be kind of useful. So I'm just flicking through. Okay, we've got lots of questions. I'm just going to I think I've answered the types of questions already. So multiple choice, short answer questions, essays, lessons mainly held in classrooms. It'll be on either of the two building sites. So whether that be the Regent Road building or the university road. It's an essay-based course, yep, with short answer questions, multiple choice as well. Yes, psychology, sociology, and biology do go well together. Can psychology be linked to sport? It's a good question. Yes, it can be linked to sport in the sense that you'll be learning in sport things about motivation, and you'll be learning things about reinforcement and classical conditioning and operant conditioning and motivation. So yeah, there will be links with sport. So we do have students who have done sport, who have taken the sport and alongside psychology. So that can work as a combination. How much of the GCSE psychology course overlaps with A-level? So if you've done GCSE psychology before your kind of previous school, then yeah, there'll be certain things like Milgram and certain, but it'll be in a lot more depth at A-level. Okay, not everything overlaps. There'll be brand new things that you've not come across, but certainly the skills that you've picked up at any GCSE psychology course, will help. I don't know how many students will be accepted onto the course. It's dependent on lots of factors, so I won't be able to say any more on that. Subject content on the AQA. Well, okay, this is a good question. What is meant by optional topics in psychology? If you go to the AQA specification, you will see that in year 2 of, so in the second year of your A-level, there are some optional topics. Now, the department has already chosen what those optional topics are, okay? So it's going to be based on what the teachers will be kind of delivering. But in year 2, we look at the topics of gender, stress, and we look at those kind of areas in some depth. We also look at aggression as well. So those are the optional topics that we actually pick. So we've picked those options for you for the second year. Talked about resources already. Does it matter if you've never studied psychology before? Doesn't matter. Most students haven't studied it before. Okay, so don't be concerned about that. Is there any politics in the psychology course, like rules? Yeah, the kind of politics that we talk about, things like ethics, the rights and wrongs. What does the law? What is there any legal aspects to things? So in this country, any psychology research is governed by the British Psychological Society and the BPS, and they all look at ethics and ethical issues. And as students and teachers, we are trying to scrutinize that research, and we're trying to identify, well, is this wrong? Was this right to do? How does this stand in relation to the ethics? Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes some psychology has an effect on changing policies and, you know, government changes and policies like that. So there might be wider implications. Do I need a laptop? That it will depend on your circumstances. So I'm not you know, quite sure on that. If you're eligible for a college-based laptop, then that's something that the Welfare and Skills Department can kind of assist with. Any resources that delve into psychology will be useful. Okay, I think that's as much as I can kind of get through. There's some really good questions. Hopefully, most of them we've kind of looked at. So, and law will go well with psychology as well. Again, it's kind of, there will be some kind of links there, and psychology can fit with English language as well. Any written-based courses can kind of go well, and as well, health and social care is a good, it can be a good option as well. So, hopefully, that has helped answer some of your questions. Thank you. Been really good, kind of being so participative in all this and asking and contributing. Okay, is that about right, Cecilia, for kind of where we are? Thank you so much, guys, for kind of, you know, again, being so interactive with this, and I wish you the best of luck with things. Okay, thanks.